Good morning. Good morning. I am looking to draw an analogy having to do with an issue that has been plaguing most of my students for, gosh, what is it, 12 years now. I hear this almost every day. Joe, I can't do word problems. And I was thinking of a better way to teach this. And I was working with some law school, potential long-term law school students who are studying for the LSAT. And I was doing a little bit of research myself and looking at how law or potential law students are taught how to study for the LSAT and in law school. I thought that this would be a good analogy, and it's true. There are a lot of really good lessons to learn from this exercise. One of the rules that they teach you is that there's way too much to read when you're prepping for law school or the LSAT to work every single problem, logical problem that comes up. Okay, let's jump back to high school. What happens when students go into, let's say, second year algebra and uh, let's say physics? How are these how are these students taught these subjects? And I can tell you with a high degree of certainty, the vast majority of the high schools go through the following exercise. To teach a topic, most often, and I don't mean all cases, but the teacher will find a problem, usually for something that there has not been a lecture for, and they will put the problem up on the board and walk through the steps to come up with a solution. What do you think about that approach? One of the attractive modes of that is that the students get to see the real problem worked through from the beginning of the topic. Well, boys and girls, this is not effective. What does that teach the students? Well, I'll tell you what it teaches. It teaches them that they can work as many problems as they can, and they will see all the possible invocations of that topic. Well, that doesn't work because every time, and this is especially true with the physical sciences, that they get a new problem with new circumstances, they don't know what to do. They sit there and are struggling because they're asking the wrong questions of themselves. They are trying to think about what to think about when they're watching this problem being worked out. And what do they latch on? They latch on to the specific details of the problem. In other words, they are not taught to look for patterns or a way to think. And this is troublesome because if they don't get the right environment, they were going to fall flat on their face when they get to college because there are an infinite different invocations of problems in a given discipline. Um, they're not taught to look for the template that the problem represents. So then they just freak out every time they see a word problem. They are immediately trying to figure out what is the equation that I need to have memorized. And that is not the right approach. Have to understand the interactions of the problem statement, what is being asked for, and then thinking about how the details of the problem then will tell them what kinds of equations to think about. This is especially true thinking about my analogy of law school. The students studying for the LSAT in the logical thinking, logical reasoning sections is how to extract out what is not known, what is known, what must be true, what can be true. This is where you learn to analyze the kinds of problems and scenarios that they will be asked to do as a professional lawyer. So I was thinking about going backwards and talking about word problems. Please reinforce with your students to stop the bloody memorizing, because what is being rewarded here? The correct answer, which is a whole nother issue as to what problems ChatGPT brings to the table. I am a strong proponent of the use of ChatGPT for research reasons and for this one of learning how to think. It's not what your kids are doing out there. The vast majority of them are just typing in the question, getting the answer, and then they get an attaboy, attagirl when they just copied down the right thing. This is not and should not be a surprise. This is what's been happening for years and years, even before ChatGPT showed up on the horizon. But it is getting worse. But more importantly, I am looking to learn how to teach the students to do these things. So I will make a couple different videos to walk through some physics problems and algebra 2 problems, because I know what's going through their heads. The students are physically in a panic. I mean, if you put heart a blood pressure cuff on them, you would be able to see them beginning to freak out whenever they do a word problem. I have literally watched the students see a word problem and just stare at it and not know what to do. They don't know what to think about. They don't know how to think about the problem. So that's what I do with the kids, and I want to have some specific examples to show that. But this is something that needed to be brought up, and it's a long-term solution. And unfortunately, how our classes go through teaching in a lot of cases is not helping the problem. Have a great day.